I beta tested Metroboard and got one of the very first ones. I got the New York one, of course, because I'm from New York, and I absolutely love it. So today I'm with Kirill and Emily, the founders, and we're talking where it started, what building was like, and shipping, and what they've learned, and what's next, and all that good stuff. So let's just dive right in. Thank you guys for coming on. We're going to start with the very obvious one is, where did it start from? When did it hit you guys that, hey, we need to build this?
Yeah. Emily, do you want to do that one?
Sure. So both of us lived in downtown Los Angeles. And I think, what was it now, 2 or 3 years ago, there was a new subway station added as part of the regional connector that was just down the block from where we both lived. And it was my first experience having lived in LA for at that point 10 years, like understanding that LA had a subway system. And so, because it was so convenient for us, we both just started taking the subway around LA a lot more. And LA is, like very famously not a subway place, it's a car city. And so, it really kind of changed the nature of our relationship with Los Angeles, into the way that we were able to get around to places. We thought it was just so cool and such a shift from how we'd been operating before that we wanted to kind of commemorate that feeling and also make a piece of art about the LA subway, and highlight it a little bit and just make something fun for ourselves to memorialize it. And then from there, we made it and it was so cool. And Kirill is an electrical engineer, very talented. So for him, it was like peanuts. He was like, this is so easy. We could definitely make more of these. And then from there, it just kind of snowballed.
So you actually made one just for yourself as like this is a cool idea to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, all right. I didn't know that. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah, it
And
was
then
like it was like a celebration of just, LA is not known as a place for subways and transit, but out of all the cities in the country, it is building the most subway, the most new stations, every year, more and more. And so I think we felt very proud about that, and we wanted to make one for LA to sort of celebrate all that LA is doing to build out the subway. And of course, the piece itself was cool. Every light is a train full of hundreds of people, and that kind of connection to sort of like the living, breathing sense of the city was something that we cherished.
And where did the idea to go mid-century? Because I'm a huge mid-century fan.
Yeah, so I have this vintage Craig stereo from the 70s that powers
Okay.
my turntable is connected to.
Hmm.
And, I've always loved mid-century design, but this stereo in particular was just like a beautiful piece. I love like any vintage sort of like stuff. And it had black walnut on the sides, brushed aluminum face, black epoxy paint, basically exactly how Metroboard ended up looking. Same kind of walnut, same brushed aluminum, even the black ink down to that level was sort of inspired by that stereo essentially. We just wanted something that would be from natural materials. So like let's do metal, let's do wood instead of plastic. And also it's just kind of timeless. Like whether you like mid-century or whether you don't like mid-century, that thing looks good in any room.
Totally agree. Absolutely agree. Well, that screws my next question, which was going to be, what did the first prototype look like in comparison to like where did you make a change? But it sounds like you went mid-century straight from go.
Yeah, but we can
Right?
go ahead.
It was just a bare circuit board, and Kirill had like printed on the circuit board that outline of the LA coast. So the very, very first one was a way pared back version of what it ended up looking like. But as soon as we got the circuit board and wanted to hang it up in our home, we pretty immediately pivoted
Got
to
it.
do that original mid-century design. And then I don't think we strayed very far from that at all.
Got it. Got
Yeah,
it.
we did.
I loved seeing it. For those that don't know, you guys held a really kind of intimate, cool gig downtown LA. God, it's got to be what, over a year ago now, right?
Just about exactly a year. Yeah.
Yeah. And I remember you had that board just sitting there on the stage, and people were kind of drooling over it. I was like, I was like, can I take that one? Can I have that one? And yeah, I was super impressed, and I thought it was really nice that you guys actually brought your backers and invited them to come down if they were in LA. And I happened to go down, and I had a blast, by the way.
It's the kind of thing that like you spend so much time working on these things and building them and designing them and manufacturing them. And I think for us, like doing the Kickstarter updates has been one of the best parts of the whole thing. Like just actually sharing what's going on with everyone, feeling this connection. And so being able to do an actual in-person event where you had people who were interested or supporting the project come in, that kind of stuff has become like some of the highlights of the whole journey is actually meeting with the people who are excited about this or supporting it. So we're really glad we did that event. It was a lot of fun.
I gotta be honest, man. This was one of the most personalized Kickstarter thing, actually the most connected campaign I've ever seen. Like you guys have been fantastic about communication, even your Discord about communicating with people and getting feedback and just constantly on there. I mean, I'm super impressed. So clearly, this was one of those ones that gets that verified crowdfund junkie badge. But I mean, that was kind of a given. So
I
um,
appreciate that.
yeah, no, of course, man. Hey, so let's just go back. So run me through some of the things. Like, what was the biggest headache that you've encountered so far? Like, data, electronic, everything. Frame. Obviously, we know tariffs. What's it been like?
I've got a few headaches. I think Emily has a few headaches. If Emily, you want to start, I'm thinking for you like silk screen and getting the frame and the aluminum kind of looking right.
Yeah, my headaches are peanuts compared to what Kirill ended up doing because he was, doing the brunt of both logistics and the firmware component of Metroboard. So it was, we were sourcing different materials, making sure finishes were right. It wasn't really a headache, it was just mostly time intensive. I think the real headaches ended up being in the manufacturing process, and some of the pain points came from, when you're like scaling and trying new materials and is starting to realize what issues crop up at scale. But I think for the most part it was a lot of the pain points were on Kirill's side.
Yeah, that's probably true. I had a lot of pain points. A lot of the parts were very painful, so it's almost hard to pick a few. But I wrote all the firmware for Metroboard, which is very, very tricky. So for those who don't know, there's a microcontroller in Metroboard that does everything: the Wi-Fi, the buttons, the lights. That thing only has 4 megabytes to store your program, and our program is only 1 megabyte. And there is just so much nuance that goes into making that operate. It's very sensitive. A few lines of code can be the difference between it working and not working. And a lot of the times you don't even get like error messages from your programming. It's just like just stops working, behaves weirdly, and instead of being like an engineer, you have to be a detective and like sleuth around and try things and see what happens. And the setup of Metroboard, I believe you had a pretty easy time with it, but like half the beta testers, the like portal for setting it up didn't even load. And that was a problem we had for a long time where like we just couldn't figure out why the portal wasn't loading, why it was loading sometimes, not other times. And for months and months, even with the beta testers, like we weren't able to figure it out. And eventually it was something so weird as like I split this one file into 2 files, suddenly everything was great. So weird stuff like that. Another really big one that we talked about a lot in the updates, so I'm sure you're very familiar with, is the light leakage. So of course, each of these lights, when the LED turns on, we don't want that to leak into adjacent LEDs, so that you can clearly, sharply see it's in that station, and the ones around it that don't have a train don't light up. And in the very beginning, when we were prototyping, that was something we actually just hadn't solved at all. I 3D printed this sort of like set of plastic, translucent sort of like bulbs. And we put them on top of the LEDs, and they had the light come up and through, but they also spread it out. And so the prototypes were leaking everywhere. If you were out in like daylight or in your apartment, you kind of couldn't tell. But when you were in a dark room, the whole thing was lit up like a Christmas tree. Like it wasn't usable. That was the first thing we worked with our factory, with our manufacturer. And that's where we transitioned to drop resin, where basically in these holes, we inject a resin much like sort of like resin plasticky iPhone case.
Okay.
And it's light diffusive. So when the LED lights up, it hits that resin and it sort of diffuses the light evenly. And then basically what we did was we put this foam sheet on top of the circuit board so that each LED was in its own little isolated well. And so when it would turn on, it would light up. That light wouldn't go anywhere because it was surrounded by this black foam, and it would light up just that one sort of like resin hole above it. And that's where we got this clean, isolated lighting to work. and it was great. And then we sent you guys, the beta testers, those first units that we built like that. I think all of them looks great. I think there's no light leakage that anybody reported. And the thing is, the factory did some more testing after that. And one thing these factories do is basically, it's called accelerated lifetime testing. And what that means is you take a product, you put it in a thermal chamber, and you have it go hot and cold and hot and cold 10 or 20 times. And that sort of simulates what would happen over years of the product being out in the real world. And when they did that, that foam we used had shrunk a little bit. And in shrinking, everything was misaligned. We got leakage again. It just wasn't working. So they pivoted to another carpet for mass production that didn't shrink. But that carpet, basically was allowing some light leakage through. And we only found out once we built 6,000 units.
Oh, geez.
Yeah. And so that was a really big pain point. We kind of ended up figuring it out by just sort of like applying some pressure from the rear. But that was a really scary one because we had
Yeah,
built
no kidding.
6,000 already, and we're like, how do we fix this in a way that doesn't cost a lot of money, is quick, we don't want to delay these. So that was a really tough one.
Got it. Yeah. No, I would imagine. Yeah, it's funny you're mentioning all this because I keep looking back at mine, and I mean, to me, it's perfect. I love it. I mean, it literally the lights. There is zero leakage. I've never noticed any. Yeah, and you're right. I was not a very good beta tester because honestly, everything worked perfect from day one. And it's continued. Even when we had a power outage and I walked into my office and everything was red, and I was like, "Oh crap!" And so I just unplugged it, plugged it back in. Everything went right back to
That's
normal.
it.
I was
Yeah.
like, "Well, I got nothing to report to these guys." I mean, like honestly, it's probably the only one that I haven't had anything to report back. Like this one, they're going to come out with a new one because I am such a power user. I make like 10 cups of coffee with this thing a day minimum, and we caught something. So now they're coming out with a new one. Same thing with Xnote, the notepad that you write. Just so happened that my Z Fold did not work with it very well.
Hmm.
So they had to do it. So I was a good beta tester for those guys, but sorry, not for you. Because,
No, reporting good stuff is also good testing. What works is just as important as what doesn't.
well, yeah, especially for me, because I'm like, shit, this thing's awesome. So I get so many compliments on it. I honestly, the build quality, I mean, you guys nailed it. It feels like such a great piece of art. Yeah, I can't say enough about it. And you are now shipping, right? Where are we at in it? I actually missed the last update, to be honest. Where are you guys at right now with your fulfillment?
So we flew down to Savannah in Georgia to meet the container ship about a week ago, which brought the first 6,600 Metro boards. So there's about 1,600 that are still finishing production, and we decided to split that up to get boards to people sooner instead of wait. So that had 2 full containers. We followed the trucks to our warehouse in Northwest Georgia, and they're basically shipping about 500 to 800 a day right now. I think we've gotten through almost 2,000, and we've got about 3,000 to go from this initial batch. So by the end of next week, we'll have the first round of orders shipped, and that's about 6,500 Metro boards.
Okay, got it. And being a backer, what would be like the number one thing you want backers to understand about shipping for those who don't follow your Discord?
Yeah. Do you think shipping, meaning from like the warehouse, or like the whole freight journey, which is
Well, I'll leave that one up to you. I'm sure as somebody who's building this, and I believe this was your first Kickstarter, right? You had
hmm
never done anything like this before. And this
hmm
is a major undertaking for manufacturing, right?
yeah.
So, I mean, what do you wish backers, not just for your product, like for anybody that gets in? Because one of the biggest things in crowdfunding is they look at that date and they really think that that's like an Amazon date. That's when it's going to ship.
Yeah.
And I've told people forever, it's just not the way it works.
Yeah.
That's a I wish I could get it. That's my goal, and stuff happens.
Yep.
And obviously, especially with everything going on with like the tariffs and all that crap. I mean, I remember you were bouncing back and forth, right? Like you didn't know where the hell you were going to manufacture it at one point, correct?
Yeah.
Wasn't that?
Yeah. I guess the thing to say is there's always curveballs. I mean, there's just so much going on, and whether it's manufacturing challenges. I mean, like we made these 60 pilot boards for you guys for the beta testers, and they were perfect. And then we started, and then we made this one inconspicuous change, and then that had this issue, and it took time to fix that. And so I think when you say shipping, I guess I'm interpreting it now more as like shipping the product, like the whole thing, like the whole process. And there's always going to be little things that creep up. You know, a fun one is like just you can make 10 or 20 or 30 or 40, but then when you make thousands, there's just these little variations that creep up that you can't even anticipate until you make thousands of an object. Like everything looked good when we made 60 for you guys, no problem. Then we made, 8,500, and some of the LEDs had issues, and we had to like deal with that. And that was something that you only could see when you started using 5 million LEDs. You wouldn't see it when you use 20,000 LEDs because the LEDs have manufacturing defects, and you kind of got to get used to that and deal with that problem. Unlike the freight side, the thing I kind of wish people like knew, and I have a great respect for now, is we finished them. They were done on February 14th, but it took 54 days for that boat to get here. It took 2 months. It took a sixth of a year for these things to get here. Like they were done in February and we're shipping now in April. And we were kind of just twiddling our thumbs. Like the boat just takes a while to get here. It got picked up February 14th. It went to Hong Kong. It missed its layover. It was supposed to be on a boat that gets here 10 days sooner. It didn't. So it sat in port for 2 weeks. It got on another boat. We were tracking the boat and sharing the boat's location with all of our backers. We had this like cool website. And I would just log in every day and this boat had moved like, 50, 60, 70 miles. And you just kind of like keep watching. But then 2 months later, it's here. And now that it's here, the remainder of it is really quick. We've got a great warehouse. They're shipping stuff out fast. But even we spend so much time thinking about like how long does it take to make this and how quickly do we think we can manage finishing it and manufacturing it. And what we think we can do in terms of like designing it is one scale. Then there's the factory and manufacturing, and they have their own whole operation going on that we don't have as much insight into, is like how fast, what problems and bottlenecks can come up. And then after all that, there's still this like 2 months of just like getting it on a boat and getting here, and it takes a long time.
I got nothing to say about that. It's exactly what it is. Like I get stuff overseas from China, and I know that the typical time by ship is maybe 25 to 34 days, somewhere around there. But if you do miss that layover, that transfer,
Yeah.
You got lucky, 2 weeks. You might not get another boat for another 30 days.
Right.
So that 1 month can turn into 2 months, and it can be extremely frustrating. Your campaign is honestly, I think, could be like the go-to how to do a campaign correctly. And I'm going to tell you 99% of it is all about communication. I don't think anything pisses me off more or other people. And if you look at the comments, right, I tell people, why is it, if you run into hiccups or you got nothing to even share, not saying anything is so much worse than just coming on and going, hey man, I got nothing today. You know what? Keep the dialogue going. Let people know that you haven't forgot about them. And then backers are happy because they know that there's movement. They know that even if the ship isn't moving, they know that they can trust the guys that are creating the thing. That's why I started this damn show. Is because I'm like, I got a whole new plan now. After meeting with the guys from Pledgebox and meeting with the guys from Inix, which is Xbot Park, I love them. I came up with this whole game plan. If I see something I love, I back it like day one. That gives me 20 something days to get them on the show. If they refuse to come on the show, no big deal. I just pull my backing from them. My thinking behind it is not to be like punitive or threatening or anything. It's like, you're asking me to put up money, whether it's $10 or $10,000, right? Why don't you come on the show and let me know that you're legit? Because quite honestly, 10% of everything I backed turned out to be scams. Not just people failed. There was only one or two that they legitimately tried to do and they failed. And I'm fine with that. That's part of this game, right? The scams are becoming really, really bad. They're becoming more prevalent. People are getting smart. They're realizing that there is no recourse, right? Kickstarter and Indiegogo, they're pretty much the broker. So what you two did, I think, was just absolutely perfect for other people that want to get into this game and manufacture. Communication. Communication is so key. So I acknowledge both of you guys. You've been phenomenal with that, So, and it also makes the time go a shit ton faster, quite honestly. You know what I mean? You see a date that was supposed to ship, and like I've got things right now that are 3 years I haven't gotten yet.
Wow.
But they still communicate. And
That's awesome. That
You
3 years
know,
later, they're still posting
you're still
updates.
rolling the dice. I don't know if it's gonna come or not, but
Yeah,
whatever. Anyway, so
yeah.
listen, guys, what's after these ship? I kind of know because I'm on your Discord, but what are your plans? Because you got to take this to another level, man. This is just too perfect.
Yeah.
After after you take a break.
Yeah, definitely. That'd be nice. After you've seen how difficult it is to just make one thing once, like scale this and be able to produce thousands of it, you've
Mhm.
kind of got to lean on that a little bit. So we will make more metro boards and we'll do more cities. That's like the number one thing for sure. So we're hoping to do like a European series of big European metros, Paris, London, Madrid, stuff like that. And then we'd like to do Asian ones as well. Obviously, Tokyo is like the final boss. A lot of other cool systems there, Hong Kong, etc. We're also looking right now at doing something that preliminarily we're kind of calling departure board, which is sort of like a ETA for the station near your house you can set it to, sort of like in the actual station, how many minutes till the next train. But again, with that same sort of like, the design is going to be really cool. It's going to be kind of like, it's not going to look like just a little dot matrix display with a bunch of LEDs drawing some kind of image. It's going to be tasteful and thoughtful in kind of the same way Metroboard is. Probably a lot of metal, be evocative of like 70s, 80s train station departure boards, like sort of like in the lettering and sort of like,
Sure.
it's not going to have a flip clock thing, but it'll be a similar vibe. And then we've got a few other projects we're thinking of because, I don't have enough definition to really share much about them, but we started with Metroboard and we love transit and we love cities, but we like to do a whole bunch of other stuff. So we're going to expand outside of doing just transit stuff, and we're just going to make other cool, exciting stuff. And
Oh
we're
man,
excited to look into that.
I can't wait. And if you do anything winds up on Kickstarter, come on first and let's talk about it. I'd
For
love
sure.
to. Yeah, I would love to have
For
you guys
sure.
come on and just, announce something new. And I think that would be an amazing companion to this. Are you guys looking at possibly doing like larger sizes or anything? Or are you going to stick with the standard size and just move on to
Yeah,
like
I think probably we'll do standard size. And the reason is like, I'd love to make big ones, but they're going to be so much more expensive that there's so many fewer people that can get them. Like, even at the current price point, I think it's out of reach for a bunch of people. And so if we made a bigger one, there'd just be an even smaller pool. And given all the time it takes to design the bigger ones, it's just a little bit hard to justify.
Rebrand Soul slip-ons, literal art for your feet. Get one now.
all right.
Yeah.
I'm happy with mine. As a matter of fact, I was thinking about doing some work here on the back. And I was thinking we need to have like Chicago. I told you my wife's from Chicago. So we have Chicago, we could have New York, we have LA, have all the boards running. And I got that one woman that was on, I don't know if it was Instagram or where the hell I saw it, that was talking about, I think it was her kid was coming over and she was timing dinner based
Yeah.
on the station she was at.
Yeah, that's right.
Dude, that was fucking brilliant. I was like, this is so smart,
Yeah, it's so cool. She was
love
saying in the beginning, her kids would go to the station, get on the train, and of course she has them on like, Find My, and she would look at the board and look at the Find My on her iPhone and see them moving, just with the light on Metroboard. So she was like very much vetting and validating that their iPhone was showing them where the Metroboard was saying the train is.
Yeah, that's what parents do. We have to prove to our kids that I know. Well, I have 5 kids, so I do it all the time. All right, let's
Yeah.
do a rapid fire 60-second deal, okay? Ready?
hmm
All right, hardest moment.
For me, writing firmware.
Emily?
Writing firmware.
Well, okay. Best moment.
Recency bias for me was watching that like almost mythically sized freight ship pull through the harbor after having dropped off the metro ports.
Got it.
Yeah, I have to say that's probably it. But if it's not that one, then just seeing all the production units actually come off the line when we were last in Bangkok and actually seeing them in the packaging, it was the first time we saw like it fully finished, boards going into packaging, those being palletized, like so many of them, and they looked so great. It was very, very proud of it.
Right on. Biggest surprise.
Biggest surprise I was going to say for me was the whole process of manufacturing. It was, like we mentioned, our first time making like a physical product and then scaling it to this degree. And Kirill, I think, had a little more insight into the process before going in, but there are just, in my mind, when you said, what are the, what would you want people to know about shipping? Because most people buy on Amazon, click a button, and it's there the next day or in 2 days. And that was the framework I was working with going into this project. So my understanding of the whole process was vague at best. And to see how extensive it is, the scale of operations needed to produce just one thing, our thing that we made, is crazy to me. The number of hands that touch it, even though it's, a team of 2, there's so many people involved in every step. And because we went to all of the places it's getting produced in, we got to see, firsthand the amount of like machinery and human effort that goes into even, like, the smallest bits and bobs. And that's just for our Metroboard, like just for the one thing that we made. There's everything else, everything that you're surrounded by in your home is also produced at scale by these same processes. And it's crazy. It's happening all the time, really invisibly, almost by design. There's like no friction to the process of procuring things anymore. And so it's just been really eye-opening to have spent, the better part of 2 years really engaged in that process and watching these pop out the other end, as fully, functioning things, like from idea to it. And now it's going to be in a bunch of people's homes. So I think just the whole thing was really eye-opening.
For me, I think I came into this as just an engineer from aerospace. The thing I was most into was making stuff and manufacturing stuff and coming up with an idea and getting it made. And then now on the other end of it, I think the part that I thought that was what I was really into, and I am, but I'm finding that the part that I have most enjoyed, which has surprised me unexpectedly, is just all of the, like meeting and working with the factory folks in China that we work with. They're like great partners and great people, and interacting with them, and then meeting folks at the Thailand factory, and then writing these updates has been one of my favorite things. And then the relationships we've ended up building with like certain backers who just keep emailing us every now and then, sometimes just to say hi. Like they just like love the project, they love talking to us. There's folks on Instagram who we see them always like the story, and they're always watching, and they always send us DMs, and just sort of forging all these connections with people, even down to like the warehouse. We've been there a few times, we know those folks. And so I think all of the interpersonal stuff that has happened for me has been more rewarding in a sense than like the actual physical thing. And I think that's not something I expected going into it.
That's great. Okay, last question. The thing you are most proud of, other than being on Crowdfund Junkie, of course.
You took the answer right out of my mouth. I think I am most proud of something that I think largely Emily is responsible for, but I think like going through this and actually showing every part of the story of what this takes and how that looks in a way that, at least to me, felt kind of like, to Emily's point, is not something I get to see a lot. And I think we've just been very open and inclusive of sharing all the details of this. And I get a lot of communication from backers and folks saying, I never thought I would see this part of it. I had no idea what this takes. This is so cool. This journey has been almost more exciting than the actual board. Some people have said, I'm excited to get the board, but I'm going to miss the updates. Like, I look forward to these updates every few weeks. And there was another guy who said, I work in logistics, booking boats and transportation all the time, and I've never seen the process. I've never seen the truck. I've never seen the boat. It's been so cool to see this process. So I think I'm really proud of, how we shared everything and what we've been able to show.
Well, I think you guys have done an amazing job. And I think that honestly, what's in the works for you two is a production company. Because this sort of, I'm on it if you take everything that you've done and put it together, and I'm sure you're probably going to do this, but it would make an awesome, I think we'll be watching this in Cannes Film Festival, because the whole process of what you've done and the transparency, and I'm sure you guys were videoing way more than what you shared with us. I would love to see that. So that's just my
Emily will be releasing a documentary in about a month.
I love it. That's awesome. Are you funding it on Kickstarter by any chance?
No need.
This is just my
self-funded. I love it.
Yeah, it's part of, I think, another exciting part of doing this, or just like, I don't know, jumping into making Metroboard is that so many auxiliary projects sprung up from it, because when you're making a project on Kickstarter and you're scaling, the project goes from being about the initial piece that you've made to really quickly just about production, and that becomes your day job instead. And so along the way, finding ways to still be interested in and curious about transit or the things that we were doing was fun. So getting to do the transit trading cards that we collaborated with an illustrator after we did our Amtrak trip across the country to visit all the cities, using crowdsourced like recordings to make our vinyl album along the way, and then filming all of this and trying to like, you know, you live the experience kind of blindly going forward and piece together the story of how it makes sense to you afterward. And so having, you know, the video helps us to kind of metabolize those experiences into something like legible and shareable. So I think that the documenting it has been a helpful part of keeping in touch with like the experience of doing it, instead of letting it become just like overwhelmingly about logistics. Like the logistics becomes something that you observe with the same carefulness that you brought to like the art project in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Oh man. Well, I tell you, I can't wait to see it because I think it's gonna be. I think it'll be awesome. And yeah, so that's really pretty much it for me.
Cool.
I really loved having you guys on. So Kirill, Emily, thank you for coming on.
Thank
I
you.
appreciate
Thanks
it.
for having us.
And if you like founder breakdowns like this, just subscribe to the channel. Of course, I'm gonna have links to everything in the description. If you wanna grab yourself a Metroboard, I highly recommend it. And that's about it, man. So thank you guys.